There is a specific smell that lives inside every Asian grocery store that ever existed in America. It hit you the second the automatic doors opened. Dried shrimp, sesame oil, something sweet and fermented, and completely unnameable. You were 8 years old, and you had no idea what any of it was. But your grandmother walked straight to the back of that store like she owned the place. She picked up a can with Chinese characters on the label, and she handed it to you. You held it the whole ride home. You never forgot that can. You never forgot that smell. You never forgot her. Hi, my name is Jason, and this is Lost Asian Foods. Number 25. Shrimp chips from a plastic bag. Not the puffy white kind from a restaurant. The flat pink discs your grandmother kept in a jar on the counter. The ones that looked like nothing, like pale little poker chips stacked inside a plastic bag you could buy for $1.50 at the Asian grocery. You dropped them into hot oil, and in about 3 seconds, they exploded into something enormous and airy and almost translucent, 3 times the size they started, and you burned your fingers every single time reaching for them because you never learned patience, and you never needed to. Because the chips were worth every burn. She made a whole bowl of them when company came over. She set them out like they were fancy. She arranged them. There was no recipe, no timer, no measuring. Just oil and heat and the knowledge of exactly when to pull them, a knowledge that lived in her eyes and nowhere else. They were not fancy. They were perfect. Number 24. Kalpico soda. White. Slightly cloudy. It tasted like yogurt decided to become a drink, hired a very good consultant, and made all the right choices. Kalpico arrived in the United States officially in 1993, but every Japanese-American kid already knew what it was because somebody's auntie had been bringing it over from Tokyo in a suitcase for years before that, wrapped in a shirt to protect the bottle, carried through customs like contraband, and handed over at the front door like a gift because it was a gift. The original flavor. Not the strawberry, not the mango, not the melon. Those are fine, perfectly acceptable. But this is not a conversation about fine, and this is not a conversation about acceptable. The original tasted like nothing else in any refrigerator, in any house in America. It was tangy without being sour. It was sweet without being heavy. It was cold and it was clean, and it tasted like somewhere else, somewhere specific, somewhere that belonged to your family in a way that a can of Sprite never could and never would. You tried to describe it to your non-Asian friends, and the words did not exist in English. So you just handed them a cup and stood there and watched their face change. Number 23. Yan. A small plastic tub, red and yellow, sitting in the Asian grocery aisle next to things your mother was actually there to buy. Half full of dry cookie sticks, half full of chocolate or strawberry dipping cream in a separate compartment that you had to peel the foil off carefully because if you rushed it, the foil tore wrong and you lost some of the cream. And that was a genuine loss that a child felt genuinely. The sticks had tiny words and pictures stamped into them, little fortunes and animals, and phrases that made no real difference to the flavor, but you read every single one before you ate it anyway. You cannot explain why. You just did. Every kid did. Every single one. Yan started showing up in American convenience stores and Asian grocery aisles somewhere around the late 1980s, and it immediately solved a problem that nobody had ever formally identified, which is that regular American snacks did not make you participate. You opened a bag of chips and you ate the chips, and that was the entire relationship. Yan made you do something with your hands. You dipped, you read. You were involved in the process. That is the genius of it, and honestly, that is better than most things that cost $1. Number 22. White rabbit candy. A small white wrapper with a blue and red rabbit on it, sitting in a tin on your grandmother's coffee table, like it had always been there and always would be. Inside, a chewy milk candy wrapped in a second layer of edible rice paper so thin it was almost invisible, and that rice paper dissolved on your tongue the moment it touched it, gone before you understood what had happened. You bit through the outer wrapper and hit the rice paper, and your brain short-circuited for just a moment because the wrapper was supposed to be garbage. That was the rule. Wrappers were garbage, and this one was not garbage. It was food. It was part of the candy, and nothing in your entire American snack education had prepared you for the possibility that the wrapper could be the point. White Rabbit has been made in Shanghai since 1943. It survived a world war. It survived a cultural revolution. It survived factories, closing and opening and closing again. And it survived the ocean crossing. And it survived being carried in someone's luggage and placed in a tin on a coffee table in California, or New York, or Houston, or wherever your family landed. You ate every single one in that tin. Your grandmother watched you do it and never said a word. She just bought more. Number 21, Pocky. The original. Not the cookies and cream flavor. Not the matcha. Not the strawberry. Not the almond crush. Not any of the 47 varieties that exist now because someone in a marketing department had too much time and too many ideas. The original chocolate. A thin biscuit stick dipped in chocolate, leaving a small uncoated end at the bottom so your fingers stayed clean while you ate it, which sounds like a small thing and is not a small thing at all. That was the design. That was the entire innovation. Somebody in Japan in 1966 sat down and thought seriously about the problem of getting chocolate on your fingers and solved it permanently, and nobody gave that person nearly enough credit. You could share it by holding out the uncoated end. You could eat half and save half in the box for later. You could do the thing from that movie, the one where two people eat from opposite ends and meet in the middle, and we are not going to talk about that further. You know what thing? Pocky in America in the 1980s and in the 1990s was still a specialty item, not a mainstream candy aisle product, not something you found at a gas station. You found it at the Asian grocery, or you did not find it at all. And that scarcity, that specific effort required to obtain a box, made every single stick taste better than it had any right to. Number 20, grass jelly drink from a can. Black, slightly sweet. It looked like motor oil, smelled like nothing you could name, and tasted like a cold evening, somewhere you had never physically been. But that felt like home anyway. That is a thing that should not be possible, and it was completely possible every single time. Grass jelly drink in a can was sold at every Asian grocery in America from the 1980s onward, and it sat in the refrigerated section next to the chrysanthemum tea and the soy milk. Almost no non-Asian American kid had ever heard of it or seen it, or would have reached for it, because the color alone was enough to stop most people cold. That was fine. More for you. The jelly itself was made from a plant called Nian Gao, an herb in the mint family, dried and boiled down for hours into something dark and thick, and cooling in a way that went beyond just temperature. Cooling in the way that Chinese medicine understood cooling, as a property of the food itself, a quality that worked on your body from the inside. Chinese medicine had been using Nian Gao for centuries before anyone put it in a can. Your family was not thinking about centuries. Your family was thinking about the fact that it was hot outside, the can was cold, and it cost 80 cents at the register. Both of those things can be true at the same time. They usually were. Number 19, haw flakes. Tiny pink discs made from Chinese hawthorn fruit, pressed into a cylinder, sliced thin, and wrapped in paper. Each piece was the size of a button. The flavor was tart and floral, faintly like candy, faintly like medicine, and completely its own thing. You ate them one at a time. You ate a whole roll in 90 seconds. Then you looked at the empty paper wrapper and felt something between guilt and accomplishment. Haw flakes cost practically nothing, a few cents a roll. Your parents bought them at the Asian grocery in a bag of 20, hid them somewhere, and you found them within 48 hours every single time. Some talents are instinctive. Number 18. Li Hing, salted dried plum. If you grew up in Hawaii, you already know. If you did not grow up in Hawaii, let me explain. Li Hing is a dried, salted plum that is salty and sweet and sour all at once, in a way that your mouth does not know how to process the first time. It is put on everything: candy, gummy bears, mango slices, the rim of a shaved ice cup, Li Hing powder on a fresh pineapple slice in the sun outside a market in Honolulu is one of the 10 best things a human being can eat on this planet, and I will not be taking questions. Chinese immigrants brought it to Hawaii in the 19th century. It became the flavor of the islands. It is still there. The mainland never fully understood it. That is the mainland's loss. Number 17. Botan rice candy. It is Japanese, soft and chewy, lychee flavored. Wrapped in edible rice paper like White Rabbit, but lighter and more delicate. The rice paper thinner. Each box came with a small toy inside, a tiny sticker or a paper toy printed on a card. You ate the candy in 30 seconds and then spent the next 10 minutes with the sticker. That was the deal Botan made with every child who opened a box. We would give you candy, and we would give you something else. Botan rice candy has been sold in the United States since 1920. That is not a typo. Almost nobody knows that. It was here before most of your grandparents were born. Number 16. Ramune soda, the marble. That is what you remember. The glass bottle with the marble sealed inside the neck that you had to push down with a plastic plunger to open. The marble dropped into the bottle and rattled around while you drank. You tilted the bottle at an angle to keep the marble from blocking the opening, and you never fully mastered it, and it got on your shirt every time. Ramune came from Japan, but it was invented in 1904 by a Scottish pharmacist in Kobe. That fact is so strange, I think about it more than I should. The original flavor tasted like lychee, like lemon water, like summer. You cannot buy the same thing anywhere for any amount of money. That specific experience is gone. The memory is what is left. Number 15. Century egg on congee. The century egg, Pandan in Mandarin, is a preserved duck or chicken egg that turns the white to a dark translucent black and the yolk to a creamy gray-green. It looks alarming. It is extraordinary. The flavor is rich and complex and slightly sulfuric in a way that your palate either accepts immediately or rejects completely. There is no middle. Your grandmother placed a sliced century egg on top of a bowl of plain congee with a few drops of sesame oil and a pinch of white pepper. That bowl, that specific bowl, is a thing people spend their entire adult lives trying to get back to. It cost almost nothing. It tasted like being taken care of. Number 14. Pandan cake, green. Not artificially green. Green from pandan leaf extract, a plant that smells like vanilla and fresh grass and something floral with no name in English. The pandan chiffon cake was light and airy, the color of a jade bracelet, and it sat on every Southeast Asian family's table at every celebration from the 1960s onward. Indonesian and Malaysian grandmothers made this the way French grandmothers made tarte tatin. It was the cake of birthdays, Eid, Lunar New Year, and Tuesday if you were lucky. American grocery stores have never stocked it. You had to know someone, and be lucky enough that they made it from scratch in a kitchen that always smelled slightly of coconut milk. Number 13. Taro bubble tea, the original version. Not the chain version. Not the powder from a bag that turns everything a uniform purple. The original taro milk tea was made from actual taro root, boiled and blended into a real purple that was uneven and honest, slightly earthy, and nothing like grape. Bubble tea itself is a Taiwanese invention from the 1980s, credited to a tea shop in Taichung called Chun Shui Tang. The taro version came shortly after. The tapioca pearls at the bottom were cooked fresh and had to be consumed within a few hours, or they hardened. That impermanence was part of it. You had to go to the shop. You had to drink it now. There was no delivery version that tasted the same. There never will be. Number 12. Fishball skewers from a street cart. Bouncy, slightly springy, made from ground fish paste, formed into a sphere, and boiled or fried until golden. A skewer of 4 fish balls cost almost nothing from a street cart in any Chinatown in America in the 1980s and the 1990s. You dip them in a dark, sweet sauce that was slightly spicy. You burned the roof of your mouth without hesitation, because waiting was not an option. Fish balls are a staple of Hong Kong street food, Cantonese in origin, and they came to American Chinatowns with the immigrant communities who built those neighborhoods. The street cart outside the grocery, the woman who knew your grandmother's name. That cart is mostly gone now. The Chinatown rents went up and the carts went with them. Number 11. The steamed char siu bao, not the baked version with the shiny brown glaze, the steamed one. White, slightly doughy on the outside, marked with a small flower petal split at the top from the steam, filled with barbecue pork that was sweet and savory, and came in just the right quantity inside the bun, so that every bite had filling all the way through. You got these from the dim sum cart. The woman pushed it by your table, lifted the bamboo steamer lid. The steam rose and there they were, 3 in a basket, and your hand was already reaching. A basket of steamed char siu bao cost about $2. In 1990, the restaurant that charged $2 for that basket is gone. The cart lady retired. Her daughter went to law school, and good for her, genuinely. But who is going to push the cart? Number 10. Pork sung on bread. Pork sung, also called meat floss or raosong in Mandarin, is dried pork cooked down into a light, almost cotton texture. It looks like a pile of pale orange fiber. It tastes like concentrated savory pork that has been somehow made into something you can pile high on buttered white bread or spread across a bowl of congee. Your grandmother kept a glass jar of it in the refrigerator. You ate it on plain white bread after school, and you did not tell your non-Asian friends what it was, because you already knew how that conversation would go. Pork sung has been made in China for centuries. It came to America in every suitcase and every grocery shipment, and every jar carried by every grandmother who refused to let the flavor get left behind. Number 9. Sesame ball from the dim sum cart. Jian Dui in Cantonese. A ball of glutinous rice flour dough, hollow in the center, filled with lotus paste or red bean paste, rolled in sesame seeds and deep fried until golden and crispy on the outside, and chewy and soft on the inside. You squeezed it, and it bounced back. That was part of the test. The bounce told you it was right. The sesame seeds crunched. The lotus paste inside was dense and floral, and not too sweet. A version of this has existed in China since the Tang Dynasty, since approximately the 7th century. You ate 1,000-year-old food from a cart being pushed by a woman who was also, somehow, the most efficient person in any room she was ever in. Number 8. Hong Kong mango pudding. Not mousse, not mango sorbet, The wobbly, slightly jiggly, evaporated milk-enriched mango pudding was served in a small bowl with a pour of fresh cream on top at the end of every Cantonese meal and on every Hong Kong bakery menu from approximately 1960 onward. The mango flavor was concentrated and real. The texture was softer than gelatin, denser than mousse. You turned the bowl upside down onto a plate, and it held its shape just barely, trembling slightly, and that tremble was the sign that it was made correctly. Your grandmother's version used real Ataulfo mangoes when they were in season. The restaurant version used canned. Both were correct. The season determined which one you got. Number 7. Your grandmother's miso soup. Not the miso soup from a Japanese restaurant. Not the tiny lacquered bowl with 2 cubes of tofu and 1 piece of wakame placed decoratively in the center. Your grandmother's everyday miso soup was made from instant dashi and whatever she had, tofu, wakame, sometimes a few slices of daikon, sometimes a small piece of fu, the dried wheat gluten cake she kept in a bag on the shelf. She made it every morning. She made it when you were sick. She made it when there was nothing else. The miso paste dissolved into the hot dashi in her kitchen at 6 in the morning, and the smell moved through the whole apartment, and it meant the day was starting, and someone was awake, and the house was warm, and you were not alone. That is a lot of work for a bowl of soup that cost almost nothing. Number 6. Banana leaf rice. A piece of banana leaf placed flat on a table, a scoop of white rice in the center. Around the rice, small portions of dal, vegetable curries, a papadum, and a piece of fried fish if you were lucky. In Malaysian and South Indian communities across America, banana leaf rice was the meal of weddings, temples, festivals, and Sunday afternoons at someone's house, where the women cooked from 11 in the morning until everyone had eaten twice. It was a communal ritual as much as a meal. You ate with your right hand. The banana leaf added a faint green, slightly grassy flavor to the rice that no plate ever could. When you finished eating, you folded the banana leaf toward you, which meant the meal was good. Folding it away from you meant something else. Your grandmother watched to make sure you folded it correctly. You always did. Number 5. Canned longan in syrup. A can with a pull tab. Inside, pale translucent spheres float in a light sugar syrup, each one with a dark seed in the center. Longan in Cantonese means dragon eye, because when you peel a fresh longan, the dark seed shows through the translucent flesh like a pupil. The canned version was not the fresh version, and your grandmother knew that. She bought the cans anyway, because fresh longan was not always available. The canned fruit was cold on a hot afternoon. It cost about $1.50, and it was enough. You drank the syrup straight from the can when your grandmother was not looking. She knew. She never said anything. That was the agreement. Number 4. Nian Gao, pan-fried at New Year. Nian Gao is a sticky rice cake, sweet and dense, made from glutinous rice flour, brown sugar, and sometimes coconut milk. The name means year, and Gao sounds like the word for high or tall. So eating Nian Gao at Lunar New Year carries the wish for a higher, better year ahead. Your grandmother made it in a round pan and let it cool. Then she sliced it, dipped each slice in beaten egg, and fried it until the outside was golden and slightly crispy, and the inside was warm, soft, pulling, and sweet. The combination of the fried egg crust and the chewy interior was something no restaurant version ever fully replicated, because she knew the exact thickness of each slice, and she cut them by feel, and her feeling was always right. Number 3. Kaya toast with soft boiled eggs and kopi. This is the breakfast of Singapore and Malaysia, and of every kopitiam, the old-style Chinese coffee shop that existed across Southeast Asia. 2 slices of white bread, toasted, spread with kaya, a jam made from coconut milk, eggs, and pandan leaf, slightly sweet and deeply fragrant. A pat of cold butter is placed between the toast slices so it melts from the heat on one side. 2 soft-boiled eggs are served in a shallow bowl, broken and mixed with dark soy sauce and white pepper. A cup of kopi, Robusta coffee brewed strong, and served with sweetened condensed milk. You dip the toast into the yolk. You drink the coffee while it is hot. If you had this once in your life, you spent the rest of your life looking for it. Nothing is exactly the same. The kaya your grandmother made from her own pandan leaves, growing in a pot on the balcony, does not exist in any cafe, in any city in America, for any amount of money. You can only inherit it. Number 2. Wonton soup from someone's kitchen. Not the restaurant version with the too thick skin and the filling that is more fat than pork. The real version. The wontons your grandmother or your mother or your auntie folded by hand at the kitchen table. Each one pinched shut with a specific technique that belonged to that family alone. The broth made from chicken bones, a few slices of ginger, and a small piece of dried tangerine peel simmered for 2 hours until it was clear and golden and tasted like the reason soup was invented. The wontons dropped in at the end, floating up when they were ready. A few stalks of blanket tender bok choy on the side, a drizzle of sesame oil. This is a bowl of soup that required 3 hours of work and cost almost nothing and tasted like someone loved you specifically. No restaurant can charge enough for that. No restaurant has ever tried. Number 1. Congee, plain, when you were sick. Juk in Cantonese, Jo in Mandarin, Lugao in Filipino, Chow in Vietnamese. Every Asian culture that has ever grown rice has a version of this dish, and every version tells the same story. You were sick. You had a fever. You could not eat. Someone went to the kitchen and put rice and water in a pot and let it cook until the rice broke down completely into a thick, pale, almost porridge-like soup that was warm and easy and asked nothing from your body except to swallow. Maybe a century egg on top. Maybe a few strands of ginger. Maybe nothing at all. Just rice and water and time, and the person who made it for you. That person is the whole recipe. Congee costs almost nothing. A cup of rice, water, 45 minutes, and someone who cares. The someone is the part that is hard to replace. The someone is the part that is fading. Make one of these this week, just one. Buy a bag of shrimp chips and drop them in hot oil, burn your fingers, and eat them standing at the stove. Buy a jar of miso paste and make a bowl of soup at 6 in the morning. Stand in your kitchen while the apartment is quiet and let the smell move through every room. Find a can of longan at the Asian grocery and drink the syrup when nobody is watching. And if your grandmother is still here, call her. Do not text, call. Ask her what she used to make. Ask her where she learned it. Ask her who taught her hands to move that way. Write it down. She will tell you she does not measure anything. Write that down too. Because the measurement is not the recipe. The memory is the recipe. These foods are not entirely gone. Some of them are still out there. Some of them are still in jars on shelves in stores with one letter missing from the sign outside. Some of them are still in the hands of women who wake up before the rest of the world and cook for people who may not yet understand what they are being given. But the hands are getting older, and the stores are getting fewer. Every year, one more thing disappears from a shelf somewhere. And nobody makes a news story about it because it was just a snack, just a bowl of soup, just a candy in a wrapper. It was never just that. It was never just anything. Tell me in the comments which one of these you remember. Tell me which one you are going to find again. Tell me which one your grandmother made and whether you asked her how. I want to know if the white rabbit gets more love than the Pocky. I want to know if anyone else drank the longan syrup straight from the can when no one was looking. Because these are not just foods. They are proof that someone carried something across an ocean so that you could taste it in a kitchen in America and know, even if you could not say why, that you were home.